Hola, and welcome to Slowpoke Travel. You're not going to get to see my wonderful visage today, probably, because this is going to be kind of a little bit of a test footage, a test video. So it might be starting off wobbly here while I do some adjustments. I'm shooting this at 60 frames per second in 1080, and I got the super boost on, so hopefully that will assist with the walking. Hey, I feel like I'm really bouncing up and down, but hopefully it won't look like that in the footage. This is a new GoPro Hero 11, and I got a chest mount on, and I'm trying to get my gear ready for some future travels. So if you're just listening to the audio of this podcast, then this doesn't mean anything to you. But if you're seeing this, then I don't know. Maybe it's a thumbs up, or maybe I owe you an apology. But I think there are different widths for this lens. I think I shot a cooking video already in linear mode, and then there's a wide mode above that, and I think this is super view. So I'm shooting this in super view, and I'll see how rounded it is around the edges, because I like doing walking and talking videos, although the wind is really coming at me strong this way. So let me see. I've been recording this audio with a DJI wireless mic. Now I'm going to throw the little windsock on here. See that there? This is a little windsock. It should go in here kind of easily. Just thread it in there. Give it a twist. I'll throw that in my pocket and see if that improves. So now this is as good as it gets. So if this footage and sound is horrible, then you probably didn't make it this far. But if you did make it this far, then it's not going to get any better than this footage-wise. Although the wind is, I can feel it. I'm walking into the wind, and it's blowing on me. But once I take a left right here, then maybe the wind won't be so bad. Curious how all this traffic is going to sound. So I think ultimately I'll be using this in some much louder places. Oops. This is as close as I get to jogging. There's nothing sadder than me, quote unquote, jogging across the street. I know drivers must feel sorry for me when they see me loping like a wounded deer. Camera girl and I are getting our gear ready for some upcoming travels. I think we've got a house sit coming up next week, but it's a short one. Then we'll have a couple of weeks to do some final touches on some gear and clothes and whatnot, and then we should be flying off to Ecuador in March. I'm not sure for how long. We're going to land and get a tourist visa, which will be 90 days, I think. I hope they don't give you much of a problem. I hope they'll just give us a 90-day stamp and we won't have to think about it. 90 days seems like not a long time, after getting a 6-month stamp in Mexico. But from what I understand after watching videos in the last year is that the 6-month stamp in Mexico isn't as much a given as it used to be. But I don't know. I think it's probably a lot of it's chance. It's, who you get in customs at the check through, how you look, how you present yourself. I don't know what you ask for. Beats me. But from what I understand, sometimes they're only giving you as much time as you can prove that you have lodging. Like if you book an Airbnb for 2 months, then they'll stamp you for 2 months. So, but I don't know what kind of shape we're going to be in when we get to Ecuador. I think we are going to book our first month and a half's lodging and then play it by ear, maybe. Or maybe we'll book the whole thing. You know, the thing is, I always have FOMO, which is fear of missing out, and I mentioned that a number of times in my videos. So I hate to lock myself into plans, because then once you lock yourself into an itinerary, then I feel like a lot of the spontaneity is gone, a lot of the potential adventure is evaporated. I mean, it's bad enough. I say it's bad enough. I mean, it's great that we have all this information, right? But in a way, it takes out a lot of the thrill and mystery. Like we are looking at an Airbnb. Actually, I'm looking at 3 different Airbnbs for potential lodging when we land in Ecuador. And, you know, so I've looked at the lodging online, I've looked at all the rooms, I've looked at all the reviews, I've taken that information and I've gone to Google Maps, and I have found the exact location of the lodging, and I've tooled around the neighborhood. Now, the images that I'm looking at in Google Maps for where we're going to be in Ecuador is from 2015, so the neighborhood might look a lot different than it looks compared to what I'm seeing online. But, you know, I have a basic idea. It's not going to be that big of a surprise, I don't think, unless there's a huge construction site. Let's see, I'm walking over some leaves. It's pretty noisy, so we'll see how that stacks up. Wow, okay, this is a Tesla. I don't know if my audio is going to pick that up. That sounds very spooky and futuristic. I've been seeing more and more Teslas and more ginormous, expensive vehicles. Everything is getting fancier and more expensive for a big slice of the population, and for another slice of the population, it's less so. I walked to a coffee shop this morning and I had to walk behind this restaurant on the way to the coffee shop, and there's all these bicycles chained up behind the restaurant. And as I was walking through, another bicycle pulled up, and the Latino fellow on it got off and chained up his bicycle with all the other bicycles. So, you know, we've got people driving around in Teslas and self-driving helicopter flying machines, and then we've got another part of the population that's bussing tables and washing dishes that just get by on bicycles, which is not the easiest thing to do in a big city. I mean, I lived for quite a while in Tampa and just rode a bicycle, and this was back in, I guess, the 1980s and also in the 90s. You know, I rode a bicycle all over the city. I used to get on my bicycle and pedal down Bayshore Boulevard, which was a nice ride on a bicycle, and then I'd get downtown, because I worked at a hotel downtown for a few seasons. And then I also worked in a grocery store in a not great part of town, and I used to ride my bicycle down there, and that was even at nighttime. Like, I would go to work you know, near midnight sometimes, not get off until early in the morning. And I remember one time I got stopped by the cops because there's a high drug area. So the cops pulled me over and, you know, got me off of my bicycle, and then went through my fanny pack and went through my pockets, and, you know, just because I was a fella in a bad part of town at night, they probably thought I was selling drugs or buying drugs or whatever, but they just pulled me over and rifled through all my stuff, and there's nothing you could do about it. This is certainly long before the days of YouTube and cell phone cameras and all that stuff. But I mean, this notion that you can just pull out your camera and start recording stuff and questioning authority, that's a nice idea, but I don't think you want to try that at 1 o'clock in the morning in a bad neighborhood when a couple cops pull you over. I don't know. I've never been rich, but I hardly qualify as poor, because I think poverty has a lot to do with the state of your mind and the state of your circumstances. And I've always had a lot of optimism. I've always had a good attitude, and I've never had anybody to take care of but myself. So that's sort of a privileged position, I think. Dang, I always go off on these crazy tangents when it's just me talking. But eventually, I'll be somewhere that's maybe a little more interesting to walk around. And I'll have something to distract me, so I won't say all these inappropriate things. But this here is a pond that I used to fish in when I was a little kid, because I lived in Tampa when I was a very young person, a couple of different times. So we come back here to visit every now and then. And then we got family scattered all over Florida and Georgia. So between Alabama and Georgia and Florida and Louisiana, that's where I've spent the lion's share of my life as a young person. Let me see if I can get this down here. Boom, boom, boom. There's a beer bottle and a bunch of fish. The fish swam away, and now it's just us in the beer bottle. I don't know if the camera's going to pick that up. Maybe I'll be able to zoom in there. There's some big panfish looking stuff. I think Rob Moffat would throw a line in there, but I don't think there's anything in there that he would keep to eat. I guess that's just a bunch of runoff from the roads and the apartments. We stop and let the car go by and the duck go across. Let's see if we can all get through this alive. These ducks make me nervous. I guess that's a duck. Anywho, I'm looking forward to getting to a different part of the world and seeing different kinds of flora and fauna and creatures. Ecuador is a place I've wanted to go to most of my life. I think the first travel books I remember ever buying were in the early 1990s. Maybe it was the late 80s. I remember I bought a Lonely Planet travel guide for Bolivia, for Costa Rica, and then I had a third one, but I can't remember where it was. It was someplace in South America. And then later on, I bought a guidebook to Mexico. It was like it was considered like the Bible for Mexico travel back in the 1970s and 80s, and I think it was geared a lot towards car travel. But I never made it anywhere on my own until recently. As a kid, my dad was in the service, and so we ended up getting out of the country as a military brat, and we ended up moving around the country as a military brat in all different kinds of states. I think I lived in Michigan and Colorado and California, and Indiana and Georgia, Louisiana, Florida. Gosh, I'm sure I'm forgetting a few of them. I think in 12 years of early education, I went to 7 or 8 different schools. So a lot of times I was the new kid in school. So, I don't know, being in one spot never seemed like the natural state to me. So I've always been a little shiftless and footloose. And then You know, when I started doing seasonal work and working in restaurants, well, that just kind of cemented it. And I guess I could have gotten bogged down in something more stable when Camera Girl and I cemented our relationship, but turns out I just unhinged her. Forced her to become shiftless. Oh well. Lucky her. I was gonna do a dash, but I can't really dash. This will be good. We'll get to see how this DJI microphone does against all this traffic, because I think there's going to be a whole heck of a lot more traffic wherever we're going. I don't think we're going to be in very remote areas when we're in Ecuador. We'll probably stick to some fairly large towns and big cities, and if it's anything like Mexico, there's going to be lots of traffic. There's going to be lots of dogs. There's going to be lots of fireworks, music blaring. I don't know. Just noise upon noise. And I'm an anti-noise guy. But I've gotten better as I've gotten older. Not because I've become immune to the noise, and not because I have made peace with it. It's just a reality that you have to live with. I don't know. I definitely recognize the noise, but it doesn't bother me as much as it used to. But I've been hoofing it kind of fast, so we'll see how this footage is going. I'm going to try to get out every day now for a couple hours and do some relatively fast walking. Try to get my heart up, try to get my breathing pushed to the limit so that I can get in better shape for when we're in Ecuador. I will at least not be at my lowest physical state. But we'll see. But we've had a lot of traffic noise, and it's only going to get worse up here. So I'll go ahead and wrap this video up, and hopefully it's still going, because like I said, I only had maybe 24% battery when I started. So we'll see what's left and working on this gear and how it looks, and hopefully this setup is going to work out and I'll be able to shoot some better videos in the future. But until then, thanks for watching, and talk to you later. Bye bye.